You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-hosts, Kevin, and we happen to have the one, the only, the Alex.
Hi, guys.
Back with us again. Alex, long time, no see, but we know that you were here, hanging with us in the show doc, at least.
Yeah, and my apologies. Sometimes real life gets in the way of fantasy, right? And real life has come with a job change. I know, yeah. Real life has come with a job change, and that job change has kind of messed with the schedule. So recording, these podcasts as late as we do them wasn't always an option. So happy that I'm able to make it back here this week. Wish I could say that my fantasy teams were still alive and relevant because they're not. They're bad.
Kevin says
real
speak
bad
for yourself.
Real bad. Missed out on the playoffs. That as it turns out, when you draft everybody with a week 14 bye, doesn't do you too good. Also, boo on the NFL for having so many teams on a week 14 bye. Do they not know that we play fantasy football and we need people that end of the year?
I've heard, and a lot of people in the fantasy community complaining about the same thing, right? Like the amount of money and interest and sheer revenue that fantasy football delivers to the NFL is undoubtable. And now the fact that they have these partnerships with DraftKings and FanDuel and BetMGM and you name it, and the NFL's getting some sort of revenue from all these betting sites. The least they can do is make it a little bit friendlier to the betting community. That's basically footing the bill for all this stuff. And I agree. I mean, it should be really easy to almost go division by division, and you have 4 teams on a bye week from weeks. You can get it done in weeks 5 through 13.
I mean,
and I know
they
want the full slate for Thanksgiving, right? Because you want to have something. Listen,
if I make it 4 through 13 and still have the Thanksgiving,
right? And the ugly truth of the matter is, in local markets, unless you're carrying like the DirecTV Sunday ticket, in local markets, if you're not at a bar, you have your hometown team and then some other regionalized game, and it's a toss-up whether it's going to be worth a crap or not. So who cares whether you have an 8-game morning slate and a 3-game night slate, because their afternoon games are freaking terrible too. Like, it's the same 3 teams every single afternoon.
It's all West Coast teams, right? Like it's
the Cowboys, it's the Cowboys or the Packers on Fox. And if it's not the Cowboys or the Packers, like this past week, because the Cowboys were on Thanksgiving, not Thanksgiving. The Cowboys were Sunday morning in Jacksonville, and the Packers had the Monday night game. So it couldn't have been. So that's why you got the Broncos and the Cardinals, everybody. I'm sorry for anybody west of the Mississippi that had to watch that.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't watching that game, you were watching New England at Las Vegas. Those were the afternoon games. Freaking terrible slate.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Terrible.
The schedule makers need to do a better job here and balancing some of this, because you shouldn't have 8-3 all the time, or 9-3, or 9-4 when all these teams are playing. Like, split it up. Like, how can you not find a way to do like 5-4 every single week and make it work? Guess what? Some of these Midwest teams are going to get flexed into a late game. It always seems to work for the Cowboys and the Packers. So why doesn't it work for the Bears, the Vikings, the Colts, the Bengals? Like, why can't you do it with these guys, but you only do it with the Central Time Zone Dallas Cowboys?
I don't know if you guys mentioned it, and this is departing from the current conversation a little bit, actually a lot of it. I had the pleasure of working the Browns Texans game, and no, not pleasure. I am glad that I got paid to be at the Browns Texans game and did not have to pay money for that, because that was terrible football. That was Deshaun Watson's return to the NFL. His first game back in Houston. This was 2 weeks ago that this happened. And if you guys were one of the unfortunate ones that sat through that, the Browns didn't score a single offensive touchdown, still won the game. And in fact, their offense was going for more of a goal or for more of a golf scoring because they were -2. They gave up a safety. So they were 2 under at the end of the game. But that was fun. That was a fun experience. First time down in Houston at NRG Stadium.
How is that stadium? Because it looks really cool, but I haven't been there.
It is really cool. I'll give you that. It is really cool. It is starting to show its age on the outside. On the inside, it looks really good.
Which is freaking nuts because I feel like that stadium is only like 10 years old. I'm sure it's older than that.
20 years old, in fact.
That's crazy.
Opened in 2002, right? And that actually got me thinking about all of the stadiums that are out there right now. Like, aside from Vegas and the new one in LA.
SoFi?
Yeah. We haven't had, like, a bunch of new stadiums in a while. Even AT&T is 10 years old now, or maybe even older than that. Jerry World. And so, like, it's kind of crazy. It felt like they were opening up a new stadium every year almost.
Although if you listen to that,
Levi Stadium's pretty new still.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right about that.
Although if you listen to that broadcast last night on the Monday night game, they went on and on and on and on and on and on and on about the Lambeau being so old and just renovating that thing constantly and all this and all that. So,
well, even to that point, how many times or how many things did we see this week where AT&T Stadium is going to get $100 million in upgrades? The Broncos Stadium is going to get $100 million in upgrades, and like I think some of these owners are starting to realize we're going to have to start upgrading what we've got, because I think communities are not going to get fleeced anymore for footing the bill for a stadium.
I still think the Broncos are going to be trying to push a deal where they put a new stadium out by the airport.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It might be 2 years down the road. Like, they probably actually have to put a competitive team on the field first.
That would be helpful
to get people to sign off on it again. But I know this offseason, right after the ownership group, Walton ownership group purchased the team, there was a lot of talk, at least on the local sports talk radio, right, on the Fan, that they were going to be looking, and that was one of the areas that they were looking into.
So just to put a bow on this, what was remarkable was that NRG Stadium is there, but right next to it is still the old Astrodome. Like, that's still standing. They use it for events, mainly the Houston Rodeo, which is a huge thing. But it's still used.
Massive. And hurricane relief centers.
And yes, yeah.
No, sure. Well, no, in all seriousness.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, like in New Orleans, they use the Superdome. It is a big hurricane, like, emergency Red Cross
shelter
center,
where a lot of people can get
strikes.
to. Yeah. And it does not look like it has been taken care of, which cracked me up because, next to that, NRG still didn't look all that great. I mean, it's huge. It's massive. Don't get me wrong. It is a massive stadium, and it's, it is built ground level because you can't build below ground. But
I think those stadiums at that high humidity level, right? Like, it does.
Yeah.
It does mess with material faster.
Yeah,
than
I agree. Yeah,
a dry, arid climate like even Denver has, but specifically like Arizona.
You get the salt coming in from the ocean.
I think it just messes with that a little bit more. I mean, good Lord, do you remember what a dump the Mariners' old baseball stadium was?
I was there. I've been there.
And watching them demolish that thing, like, it was so cool how they took it down. But that thing looked like a rotted cesspool. And really, the Superdome has gone through stages of that in New Orleans where it looks really, really crappy, and then they dump a ton of money into it, and then it kind of gets fixed. And then, oh my God, Katrina ripped the part of the roof off. Oh, what an excuse to actually give it a facelift again. Like, absolutely nuts.
Yeah, pretty crazy. But we can talk about this weekend. And
So this is what
weekend,
happens when we get all three of us back.
Yes,
I know.
We are 10 minutes into this show, and we are so far off on the freaking weeds, but it is all football related. It's just a little bit different than what y'all are used to.
And Gator J saying the Buffalo's looking at getting a new one, and they think it should be ready from by
and that makes sense, right? They finally raised the money after threatening to move to Toronto, and the team is, doing better than what they have been. I think they finally got that signed off, so that makes sense as well.
Right.
This weekend was the weekend of wild finishes.
It was the weekend of what in the world are these coaches doing?
If also, you were betting this weekend, good luck to you. Because holy crap!
It started Saturday, right, with that Vikings Indy game that we all thought was over at halftime.
Oh my gosh!
And if you didn't think it was over at halftime, you're either a Vikings fan or crazy, and there is not a fine line between those two groups.
Vikings fans are used to that. Show me a Vikings fan that didn't think that game was over.
Yeah, so my timeline on Twitter is all, I lived up there for a while, so I got to see a whole bunch of it, and it was fantastic to see the despair and then the cheers of disbelief, really, that they came back and won that game.
Real.
That carries over to Sunday, which we got a bonus football game in the World Cup final, which was also bat-ass crazy because Argentina was
forward to minute like 72.
Yeah,
watch
Argentina's up
through the end of the game, and that's what you need to see.
Yeah, it's insane, absolutely insane. And then it just continued right on through Sunday with whatever the hell the Raiders and Patriots game was at the end.
Freaking Jacoby Myers, the Dak Prescott, the final play of the Cowboys Jags game, right? It was ugly. Slight tangent, but talking about this weekend's games, the Broncos had over 18,000 people not show up.
That feels low.
Well,
that's really high for Broncos game.
Yeah, it's the highest since 2017. It was whatever Drew Lock's first start was for the Broncos. They actually had a lower attendance, and pre that
2020, I think 2019. We were doing this show when he did it.
There you go. And pre that, it goes all the way back to like the 80s.
Right.
Crazy.
It is absolutely insane, the disgust that the Denver Bronco fan base has for this team. And this is one thing that it's easy for, especially Derek and I, because we're here in this market. Now that you've moved away, Alex, is probably a little bit tougher, right? But it's crazy, right? We feel like we got fleeced so hard as Broncos fans that people are just giving up. Here's the deal. I tried to sell my seats, right? I have 4 seats. I've had them for years. Tried to sell them. I couldn't give the damn seats away for the game. Like, just to have a body there. I couldn't give them away. Like, that is absolutely unheard of for Broncos games. And I think I would have had to pay somebody to take my tickets.
I mean, it didn't help you had a bad Arizona team coming in, so there was no even from the opponent's side.
The week before from the Chiefs sold, but it was not the it was not the financial advantage that you can normally make by selling to a Chiefs game.
There you go.
Like, even the Chiefs fans are like, we're gonna win. Who cares?
I mean, they're not wrong. What is it, like 12-0? Patrick Mahomes against Denver?
Yeah, they kept it close at least, right? It was entertaining. They covered, right? That was the biggest deal.
Hey.
But yes, crazy weekend. Good fantasy weekend. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
At least it ain't Florida. Sorry. I'm a Gator. I'm a Dogs fan. Sorry.
We know we've seen you two go back and forth a little bit in chat on previous episodes.
But it was a good fantasy weekend for some, right? Jefferson went off. He had to get back in that game. Kirk Cousins had another amazing game. Jalen Hurts, QB1 again. Now the big red flag with Hurts and this shoulder sprain, right? Like, what are we going to expect? Is he going to miss? They came out and said, well, he's a fast healer. Like, that seems like more than anything else. Like, hold on, we don't want to tip our hands to the Cowboys. Jalen Hurts might be playing. Like, let's make him plan for both quarterbacks.
Can we talk about the oddities and coincidences? Because I don't think it's anything more than that, but it is an oddity and a coincidence. This was the exact same week that Carson Wentz got hurt, the year that they won the Super Bowl. Same week, and he got hurt. His was season ending. He blew out his knee. But Jalen Hurts, a joint injury in the exact same week as Carson Wentz.
It's like the fluke injury when Alex Smith got the exact same injury on the exact same day that Joe Theismann got his, right? Like just those weird...
An oddity and a coincidence. Yeah, I'm not saying there's anything else to
there's
it,
no conspiracy theory behind it, right? But it is just you stick around and you follow this game enough and just the crazy things that you can link up and go, hey, did you know? And it's just random water cooler, like WTF stuff.
Pretty crazy. This one doesn't sound as bad as Carson's knee, though.
No, you know what the crazier thing was is I don't know if you guys were keeping an eye on any of the lines or anything like that before that news broke, where Jalen Hurts was firmly like the odds-on favorite to be the MVP for the NFL this year. And before the news even broke on that thing, all of a sudden he started falling down in the, and I think it was like a minus 150 to win, something like that, and started creeping back towards plus money on that thing well before the news broke. The line also moving pretty well on that Eagles and Dallas, that Philly and Dallas game there as well, where Eagles were big favorites, and that slowly started changing there long before the news broke. So, I
mean, Wentz was the odds-on favorite to win the MVP that year too. I mean, it's just a very odd thing.
Right. Vegas certainly. We got to figure out what how Vegas gets that info before everybody else seems to be. Like they got an inside person there, and I want to know who that is so I can become friends with them.
Yeah, I think that it's coming from. I think it's coming directly from the source, right? I think it's coming from the NFL. Like, hey,
people know.
We need to know. Give us the time frame. They're saying, okay, this is what we're seeing. We're going to announce it here. And the NFL needs. My guess is they probably have some sort of requirement that they need X amount of lead time to be able to, huddle up and navigate any type of PR spin that is needed for any reason.
Which goes back to our. The first thing that we were talking about, all of these gambling sites, all of these gambling platforms. I mean, that is what is really, I know that the casual fan will always be important to the NFL, but man, if these betting, these bettors and everything,
absolutely,
guys like us that play fantasy football that are more invested in just one team, more than just one team, that are invested in the league, that's where they come from. See, I knew we'd get back. We'd get back to where we were. There was a whole reason for our tangent there at the beginning.
Absolutely.
Just circle it all the way around.
Yeah. Circle back.
Any other thoughts here on week 15 before we start getting into Pine and Shine recaps?
I guess a couple really quick. I thought the Dolphins put up a much better performance against the Bills than anybody thought they were going to put up. After two back-to-back bad weeks out in California playing the Niners and the Chargers, the Dolphins looked more like themselves and played a lot better in that really cold, snowy game in Buffalo than I think most people were going to give them credit for. I think the Cowboys were looking ahead to the Eagles. They got caught peeking. You thought they would have learned their lesson against the Texans, and maybe they did. I mean, offensively, for the most part, they put up the points, right? The defense did not play up to snuff as they have the past few weeks. But heck, the Chiefs didn't learn their lesson from the Cowboys against the Texans, right? They had to get, they literally had to get back in that game to go to overtime and then win it. So I guess good on the Houston Texans. For as bad as they are, they're not laying down. So
I mean, they're professionals,
I can appreciate that. There's a lot of professional pride there, and the fact that they're not packing it up, getting ready to go to the Caribbean for, the off season and get some time away. The Lions continue to impress as they, are long shots, but they're making it really difficult for other teams trying to find a way for them to sneak into that last wild card spot. And I don't know that if I were a division winner, and not the number one seed, but if I were the 2 seed, whoever that is, I don't know that I necessarily want to face the Lions. Like, nope. I'm sure San Francisco's saying, bring it on. Like, their style of play travels wherever they go, but they're going to give teams a bit more than what they're willing to bargain for. And they've really kind of bought in to this Dan Campbell way of biting kneecaps and taking prisoners and everything else.
They're gritty for sure.
And they are and they're fun to watch because of that.
Mm-hmm.
They're trick plays, right? They're doing some different things. It's a fun team to watch right now. And typically you haven't been able to say that about the Lions for a while now. So if you get a chance to, check them out. Like, they do some interesting things. Just, if you follow play calling and route concepts and everything else, it's kind of different and it makes it entertaining.
Yeah, the one of the craziest things out there is I remember doing a guest spot on a show before the season started. And they asked for your hottest take prediction of that, and I said that the Lions would finish second in the NFC North. And that one's looking not so crazy at this point. So let's go Lions.
But did you think it would be to Green Bay or to Minnesota?
I did not think. I was not a believer in Minnesota.
How could you be? New coach,
Well, it's more from the standpoint of next year. Next year, the Vikings are going to be awful. It doesn't matter what they do. You're right. The reason I say that is because historically when you look at teams and they do very well or very poorly in one-score games, which the Vikings are 10-0 this season in one-score games, and more often than not needed to come back in the fourth quarter in the majority of those games. That is hard to duplicate season to season, and you probably are looking at the Vikings, maybe going 50% of those next year, if not worse. So there's a very real possibility that the Vikings could very easily be 8-8 this season. Instead of sitting at 11-3, right? And that changes the narrative drastically in that division if that's the case.
I'll tell you what's going to be interesting to follow over the next couple weeks will be what teams emerge from the South Division in both AFC and NFC, right? Because those are still totally up for grabs.
Jags and Falcons.
I mean, that not impossible. Totally plausible.
I'm just saying, how many people called that? Like,
right,
Jags and Falcons. There you go.
But it could be that could be a team too that that could be a team. They've been fighting for their playoff lives since week 12. All these teams, and so you run into a team like that if you're a team that is comfortable getting in as that 4 seed or whatever. That's a hard ask to go against a team that's been playing like that for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Bengals Jaguars, I think, would be a really fun game to watch.
Yeah.
And it's not the sexy names that we're traditionally used to, but I do think that game would be a lot of fun to watch.
A ton of fun. And 2 great young quarterbacks, that'd be a lot of fun with a lot of talent on both of those teams. That'd be a lot of fun.
Right. Question coming in here. Terrence asking, which two running backs should I start this week? Zach Moss, Dobbins, Deion Jackson, Rashad White, Jamal Williams, ETN. Zach Moss is at the bottom of my list. I'd rather play Deion Jackson over Zach Moss. I'll throw that out there to start. How you doing this? You got to pick 2. Which 2 are you going with here?
Is it half point PPR or full point PPR, Terrence? And I can't remember traditionally what you've told us in the past. If you could remind me, I would appreciate that. I'm saying Dobbins number 1. Like the last 2 weeks since he came back from this stint on the IR, Dobbins has been very good and extremely efficient. The Baltimore Ravens need him right now with Lamar Jackson out. Full point PPR. Okay, so and against the Falcons at home, I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens running back here. So I'm going J.K. Dobbins number 1, no questions asked.
Does him missing practice today concern you?
No, maintenance day. No, maintenance day. There's been no sign of it. You don't really have a reason of why he missed practice. I think it was just a recovery day, making sure that his knee's not flaring up, getting the ice bath, get a little bit of treatment, all that good stuff. But based off his volume and yardage, especially yards per carry, he's been great.
Right. Just wanted to make sure that we covered that we know that he missed practice today, all of that. So that way, if somebody had that question.
Yeah, oh man.
I like Jamal Williams. He's starting to emerge there in Detroit.
I like his matchup against Carolina And I understand the allure to ETN, but I don't love ETN on a short week on the road.
The Jets have been tough
at the Jets, right? Like, I think that matchup is a little tough, and staring that down from Thursday to Saturday and Sunday, I don't know that you're going to be completely happy with that. I think that this game is going to have to be more of a Trevor Lawrence game with ETN filling in than ETN being able to really kind of springboard off. And he had a much better week against the Cowboys than I thought he would have. But I don't know that I'm banking on that against the Jets. So that leads me, I think, to Jamal Williams against Carolina. Like, I like that matchup. I like his ability to get in the end zone. He's seeing maybe not all. He's seen the majority of the goal line work. So Dobbins is your volume play. Dobbins is your volume play, and Jamal Williams has all your touchdown upside.
Alex, any other thoughts on that one?
No, I co-sign on that for sure.
Yeah, agreed. So consensus on that, we're going the Dobbins, we're going the Jamal Williams route there. Guys, again, if you have any questions, anything like that, throw them out in the chat. Let's go ahead and talk about these things. We are fighting in a lot of cases for semifinals. I know some of y'all have already made your way to your finals. Let's get you guys squared away and ready to rock and roll there.
And Terrence, kudos to you for making your semifinals and scratching and clawing and fighting after drafting JT first or second overall, right? Like, I'm assuming that's how your league setup was, and having Taylor really be underwhelming the entire season outside of 1 or 2 weeks for you to build a roster and continue to tweak it and do what you need to do. Kudos to you, sir, and congratulations for making your semifinals.
Yeah, absolutely. Terrence also having a question there. He needs a streamer defense this week. His options are the Jets, the Bucks, the Rams, the Bengals, the Browns.
I like the Rams at home against the Broncos.
That Broncos offense has somehow sparked life the last 2 weeks.
I think I want to take Tampa Bay against the Cardinals is what I want to take.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the one that kind of leads. I think there's the least amount of risk in that game. Cleveland, I'm not.
Has Arizona said who's starting yet? Do we know? Have we heard anything?
It ain't Kyler, so it don't matter.
And Colt's still in. Colt McCoy has to clear concussion protocol.
Yeah, so that is a very intriguing.
There's a real chance that it's Trace McSorley that runs out there again on that one. I think I'm right there with you, Kevin. I think it's the Rams are probably. I'm sorry, the Bucks are probably the safest bet there. I really like the Browns matchup against New Orleans. You know, Andy Dalton is going to turn the ball over once or twice there, and they've been in very low scoring games these last little bit there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Browns would probably be number 2. Browns would probably be number 2 to me. I think I'm going to stay away from the Bengals-Patriots matchup.
Yep.
This has trap game kind of written on it for me, so I don't love that matchup and what that could be.
Can you imagine?
Rams, the way that they just kind of crap the bed on Monday night, starting to get feelings of, okay, they had their hurrah, right, against the Raiders when Baker came back and they did all that. And yes, I expect that to be a low-scoring game, but I feel much more comfortable with Tampa Bay against a third-string quarterback than I do anyone else at this point.
And actually, now that you bring that up, I'm pretty sure the weather in Cleveland is supposed to be absolutely just awful.
It's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for a lot of the country. That's another thing to consider. There is a storm that is moving through, and it's going to impact a lot of the U.S., right? It's either going to be cold or it's going to be snowy. And while I know that we don't usually think about, the weather in fantasy football, but there is going to be some pretty gnarly conditions that some of these games are going to be played in this weekend.
I actually really don't have a problem taking Cleveland looking at that weather report. It's supposed to be 16 degrees, 30 to 40% chance of precipitation, light snow, rain, yada, yada, yada. Heavy winds, and the winds inside Cleveland come in and they swirl around
right on
constantly in
the
that
lake.
city. Now, what's really interesting is when you look back at some of the historical data on cold weather games, when the temperature drops below 20, there is a huge correlation between low fantasy points as far as players putting up fantasy points in games and that 20-degree mark. So at 16 degrees, that there's probably not going to be much done from a fantasy perspective in that game for either side, which leads to defenses being pretty good there, would be my guess. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem with that. So there's our top two, right, Terrence? Like you're either going Bucks or Browns. And I think all three of us completely agree on that. So at that point, it's whatever your gut's telling you. And I don't know that there's a true right or wrong answer, but we do feel comfortable with both of those as good options for you.
Yep. Terrence saying thanks. That's back to your JT comment, Kevin. There, it's been rough. Even though JT missed, currently down by 30 going into the second round. So yeah, we got to swing for the fences there a little bit. Absolutely. Terrence also asking, is AJ Brown a must start if Hurts is out, or do I just use St. Brown, Keenan Allen, and flex someone else?
I actually like AJ Brown. If Gardner Minshew is gonna go out there, I like AJ Brown. Because Gardner Minshew's going to sling it around. The guy's got like crazy confidence in his right arm.
Yeah, he's got no fear, and he's played well in his stint in filling in for Jalen Hurts. So I think AJ Brown kind of moves instead of your wide receiver one. I think he is your flex. I mean, shoot us over who else you have, and we can kind of help guide you along that. But just based off of those three receivers, I have no issue playing those three receivers as wide receiver 1, 2, and your flex. Like that's a stout lineup to come across, and you're trying to make up points elsewhere. But the way the Cowboys just gave it up to the Jaguars, like I'm not afraid of that coverage, right? It's boom or bust, but when they bust big. Keenan Allen has come on really strong since he came back. St. Brown continues to do his thing. You'd like for him to fall into the end zone just a little bit more. I think against Carolina, there's a good possibility of that. But I like those three options. I don't have any issue with those.
Yeah, I think AJ Brown I think he's high-end wide receiver too this week. So that's still in a must-start type of territory for me. So yeah, Terrence, it's going to take something else that you're going to put in that flex that's going to just massively outshine AJ Brown for me to tell you to come off of him. Now, some of that too is that AJ Brown's also kind of that one-touch guy that he can make a play and house it from anywhere on the field. We've seen him do that multiple times through this one. So he's that big body receiver that good luck bringing him down in the open field.
I wouldn't be shocked if the first play from scrimmage for the Eagles is a play action deep shot to him for Gardner. Right. That's they don't do that,
line up in a heavy run formation and boot it out, right? Because Minshew will scramble a little bit. He's not the runner that Hurts is, but he's got enough mobility that you can still do some of the boots and get him out of the pocket and do some RPO stuff to keep the defense honest.
Just send it. See what happens.
I think Minshew's good for 30 or 40 yards on the ground in this one. Devonta Smith, I think, is the one that's left holding the bag here a little bit, and I think that you probably see him 4 for 45, 4 for 50 type of deal in this one. Like that's
especially if Goddard actually comes back and plays, right? Got activated to the roster. He's going to be back. So there's your security blanket. They're going to get him some touches, maybe a limited snap count, but while he's in, Minshew's going to be looking at him for a relief valve. They're probably going to try and run the ball a little bit more between Miles Sanders and company, right? So there's that, but I like Brown.
Alrighty, guys, let's go ahead and hit up the old Pine and the Shine recap. So started off, who you got on your Pine? Did you hit? Alex, go ahead and lead the way.
I had Raheem Mostert versus the Bills. I said he had a rough couple of weeks and that a stingy Buffalo run defense. Derek, go ahead and explain your fancy language I don't understand here.
Oh, so that was just the kind of the measuring stick there. Going into the week, he was expert consensus ranked 26 at his position. So RB 26 coming into the week. He finished as RB 11. So definitely a swing and a miss on that one.
As I just got a Nintendo Switch, so you guys will, if you played Mario, you'll appreciate this. And it's just miss.
Yes.
Right. My pine for the week was Josh Jacobs. He was going in ranked RB5 on the week, finished as RB 18. So, still finished inside RB2, but well off the top 5 finish that he was expected, or the experts had him ranked at. So I'm going to take that as a hit on the pine.
All righty. And so mine, I called for Saquon Barkley, who had just come off of some not good weeks there, hadn't really gone above 40 yards rushing in 3 of his last 4, hadn't gone over 20 yards in any of his last 4, and absolutely exploded. This one, Washington had been allowing very few points. Saquon Barkley decided to show up, show out, and had a top 10 finish this week. So definitely a miss for me on the old Saquon train.
He looked really good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if y'all were watching that Sunday night game or not, but
I caught part of it.
For the Giants to close out that game and just lean on Barkley, those spin moves were so good. Those I mean, it really did look like Saquon, right? Rookie year Saquon on those last few drives and being able to salt the game away. So I guess that's good if you're, a Saquon believer that, he still has it, or at least has flashes of it. It's on the Giants. They've outkicked their coverage this year, right? Another team that has outperformed so far what we thought they were going to. They need some more work on the offensive line. They obviously need some receiver help in a very bad way to be able to kind of keep things moving. But Saquon looked good. And we did not expect this year out of Saquon, right? No. And all 3 of us were saying, no. And he started out so freaking hot and then kind of tempered out, right? Like he fell back to earth through the middle of the season. But if this is the Saquon that you're going to get here to end the year, you're liking this going through their playoffs. Like, this is a guy that you can hitch your wagon to and go, holy crap. Like, he bookended it, right? And that's the best way to do it. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to have a fantasy player and he's going to have ups and downs, you bookend it. You're good at the beginning to get out to the lead, and then you're good at the end of the season to put everybody away. Like, kudos to you.
Absolutely. All righty, let's go ahead and hit the Shine recap there. So who we thought was going to have a big game. Alex, go ahead and lead us off here.
So I went with Michael Pittman against the Vikings. The Vikings have the worst pass defense in the NFL. I was saying hopefully it would be a big game for all Indy wideouts, and I just singled out Pittman. It was a big game. It was a big first half for Indy wideouts, but that was enough. That was enough to get it done. According to Derek, expert consensus ranking was 27, and he finished wide receiver 17, so I win.
Yeah, that was definitely a hit there. Kevin, how about yours?
My shine, I had Isaiah Pacheco. I really thought that the Chiefs were going to have an easier time against the Texans and learn from what the Cowboys did wrong. Pacheco had been performing very well, and as we can see, the consensus ranking on him was RB15, thinking that he'd really kind of step in and do that, and it didn't work. Jet McKinnon got a couple touchdowns, right? It took some of that volume or potential upside away from Pacheco, and because of that, good for Jet McKinnon, but it cost Pacheco his top 15 RB finish. So I took the miss on that one.
And my shine, I called for Chris Olave, who I thought was, he definitely had a prime matchup going against Atlanta, who was just allowing points in bunches. Olave, had been a little bit slow. Figured this would be a bounce back game. Nope, swing and a miss on that one again. So in a rare sequence, I went 0 for 2 this week. Alex going 1-1 and Kevin going 1-1. So that moves us to the standings right now on the old Pine and Shine. Alex sitting at 11 and 15.
Kevin, 15 and 11.
I'm sorry, you're right. 15 and 11.
Hey, now.
Maybe I should just chalk up 4 more losses in there for the times you've missed.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
Kevin sitting at 16, 12, and 2 right now. and I'm holding on to that lead still at 17-9-4 right now on that one. So we'll see how if I can hold these guys off here for a couple more weeks and pull this one out. But any other thoughts on the Pine and Shine from last week?
No, not our best week, but that's okay. We're working to do better.
I do have a theme, I guess, when it comes to this week's Shine call. I just hate the Vikings pass defense. Go ahead. Let's move on.
Well, yeah, I see that now. All right. Big Trev over on YouTube. Need a QB this week. Win, and he's in the chip. They've got Deshaun Watson, not huge on playing, and best options are Danny Dimes. No, thank you. Jared Goff or Derek Carr. And I say no thank you to the Danny Dimes. Danny Dimes at least gives you the rushing upside and the rushing floor there that he's going to get you, probably 5 or 6 points off of just running the ball. But the passing work when he goes, 150 yards, I don't know that I want much of that. Anyway.
All right. So first off, I'm not starting Derek Carr this week. Playing in Pittsburgh, another one of those crazy weather, windy, cold, stinking games. Like there is a lot of risk when doing that. So Derek Carr for me is out completely. Danny Dimes, going against the Vikings in a dome, like this is the most insulated, protected this guy could possibly be against a Vikings secondary that has just not been playing well. Saquon's been running like with his legs. It's not sexy, but I think that there's a way to get there. Really, I think it's Jared Goff. I think it's Jared Goff in Carolina. The weather's not going to be as big of a factor. It's not supposed to be like freezing cold temperatures. The wind's not supposed to be blowing sideways and upside down. So I think Jared Goff is my number one start off of this list, but Daniel Jones is number 2, and I think it's a hell of a lot closer than any of us want to really admit.
I would actually go. I would actually flip flop. I think I would go Daniel Jones first, because that Vikings pass defense is atrocious. Hell, Matt Ryan carved them up in the first half of that game.
For 154 yards all game.
Sure, but I guess that
it was defensive touchdowns, man.
That's
like
true.
They
That's
gave
true.
up
That's
2.
True. That's true. But here's the thing. I think that because that game is inside, it's still going to be cold in Carolina. They're projecting 34 degrees at kickoff.
Yep.
Like it's still going to be cold.
But these guys are from Detroit. They don't care.
Yeah, and they also play inside in Detroit. I like Daniel Jones, but then I do like Jared Goff that way. So I'm flip flop of Derek of Kevin, excuse me, and I agree with not playing Watson and not playing Carr. If you have the chance, I'm telling you, I think Gardner Minshew is not a horrible play this week.
Yeah. Minshew's not an interesting deal there. Like I'll give you that one.
I would hate to bank.
I know.
Right.
I know.
It's like the Matt Flynn thing in the championship game. Like, and not to bring this up again, but it's the backup coming in. You're grasping for straws. He has better options and safer floors here. Like, don't salt away your playoffs on a hunch.
All right. So I mean, realistically, right? Like this is kind of where I'm leaning at these things, because as we go through it, you're right. The Derek Carr Pittsburgh matchup, I want zero part of that. We've already kind of gone through the Cleveland New Orleans deal and that weather. Like anyway, I don't want any part of either one of those games on that one. So that really leaves us with Goff or Danny Dimes there, right? And when I think about it this way, what am I more likely to get from a stat line? Am I more likely to get 180 through the air and 30 yards on the ground and maybe a touchdown out of Danny Dimes, which I think that's probably pretty close to a stat line on what we can expect? Or am I more likely to get 250 and 2 out of Jared Goff? I think I'm probably more likely to get the 250 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns from Jared Goff than I am to try and get the 210 yards combined and a touchdown out of Danny Dimes there. So off of that, I'm going to lean the Jared Goff route on this one. But, Kevin, you brought that point up that this is closer than I think we think. I think you're right. I think when this thing's all said and done, we're probably looking at this thing being closer to maybe 1.5 to 2 total points on fantasy for these guys that separate that. And I like the shot on Jared Goff and this Lions team playing the way they are, more so than Danny Dimes having to, really try and do some things on both the air and the ground there, especially when he's got not much in the receiving options there. So I would also go Goff and Dimes, but a little bit different kind of opinions there. Any other thoughts on that question? All righty. Big Trev also needing a wide receiver, full point PPR, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Thielens, Burks, J-Mo. Man, oh man.
The weather does cool me off of DPJ.
Right.
Right. Like this just feels like such a ground and pound game. Like it feels like,
and Cleveland has 2 great running backs. They're going to utilize them, right?
Like, and I know Chubb's questionable, but I don't think that matters. Like, I think he finds a way to suit up, and I just don't see there being a whole lot of production through the air in this game. Like, it just does not feel good to me. So I don't like Burks coming back from a concussion against a Texans team that really just doesn't give it up against the air. So I think,
and Tannehill could likely miss.
Yeah. So I think it's Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, J-Mo's your upside, right? Like, I think that's definitely, you're hoping that he gets behind the defense and catches a 50-yard touchdown pass again. But I mean, that's really grasping at straws. So I think it's Thielen is kind of your option here. And I know it's not sexy, but he's been, I guess, flex worthy here the last couple weeks because he snuck into the end zone or a 2-point conversion, all the little things to kind of sneak him in there. But I think that's the best floor play that you have based off of conditions and how the offenses work and what their opponents do and don't do.
Right. And the fact too that, Jameson Williams, right, we were talking upside, he has yet to clear 20% of snap count in any of the games that he's played in this week. And that's something that I don't want to have to bank anything on there. Treylon Burks, right, one coming off the injury. Tannehill also is injured, banged up in this one. And they're up against Houston. Houston has been just letting everybody, march on the ground there to the point where the air attack is almost ineffective. Like, they're actually really good at containing fantasy wide receivers and fantasy quarterbacks from an opposing defensive standpoint. So, and the weather takes DPJ out of consideration. So yeah, it's Thielen. Any other thoughts there?
No, I'm in on Thielen too. Indoor football.
All right. I like it. Big Trev, have CMC, Ramondre, Kamara, Rashad, who to play. Guess it's not a bad problem to have, but who do you sit? Need 3 full point PPR.
I'm playing CNC, Ramondre, and Kamara.
Yeah.
Like, Tampa Bay's offense has been. I keep waiting for them to click, and if I keep waiting, I'm going to end up costing myself here in some leagues. So at this point, I'm abandoning everybody not named Chris Godwin, and if I maybe Mike Evans, maybe, but I'm outside of that, I'm abandoning it. So CMC, Ramondre, and Kamara, I think are your clear. There are 3 clear plays this week.
Right. Yeah. 100% cosign. I want no part of a Tampa Bay offense. Like you just said, I also don't want a guy that's in pretty much a 50-50 split with Lenny either for fullback work. Or for running back work. Terrence asking, is Herbert a better start over Jamal Williams? He's talking about Khalil Herbert, better start over Jamal Williams. I'd rather play Jamal Williams. One, Khalil Herbert is coming back off of an injury. He is going to be the third guy on that deal to get touches, and that first option is always going to be Justin Fields to run the ball there. He's going to be RB1 as well as QB1 in that game. David Montgomery still going to get probably his 14, 15 touches. Herbert is maybe going to get about 12 would be my guess on that one. Whereas Jamal Williams will get probably 12 to 15 opportunities in that game. But the difference is Jamal Williams is going to get all the very valuable 5-zone and 10-zone touches. And I'll take the guy that's in an offense that they like giving him the ball inside the 5-yard line to try and score a touchdown.
Cosign.
I would agree with that. Guys coming off of the IR, like it just takes them a little bit, and it's hard to get back into game rhythm. And I would rather take the guy who's been playing and been scoring than the guy who's coming back and trying to get to that point.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and head on over into the Thursday night football preview here. So we've got the Jaguars and the Jets going against each other. The Jets favored by 1 at home here. The over-under 38.5. Guys, what are your thoughts on this game?
I'm going to take the Jets in this game. I think it's defensively. I think I believe this defense is going to do enough in cold weather. They're going to stymie the passing attack that's been working so well for the Jags. They're going to really shut down the run game, in my opinion, right, with Travis Etienne and try and put this on Trevor Lawrence with playing, Sauce Gardner coverage on. He's not even gonna have to shadow, right? Like he's just going to shut down one side of the field. It doesn't matter who, and kind of work through it that way. So I'm taking the Jets here. I think it's going to be a close game. I have the under. I don't think it's going to be very high scoring at all. But it's a good thing it's on Amazon Prime and we're not stuck watching it.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I watch them, but I'm just saying as a nation, like what a terrible –
it's been bad Thursdays this year.
15 Thursday night game. Like you couldn't come up with anything better than that. Like
they could have flexed the Broncos and the Rams into it.
I tell you what, though, it has been like start of the season. This was a good matchup with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson when we thought they would be good. Anyways,
this was never a good matchup for Thursday night. Like you're drawing the lesser part of the New York market.
Yeah.
And a Jacksonville market that for all purposes considered don't give a flying leap about this football team.
Yep. Give me the Jags +1 and the under.
Yeah, I think I've got to go with the team that's been playing pretty hot here with the Jaguars.
Could totally see them stubbing their toes and falling on their face, though. Coming after that high of beating Dallas the way that they did, could totally see that happening. But I'll take the Jags.
There is some of that, but they're also only 1 game back of the Titans in that division there as well. And when you're playing for something this late into the game there, such as the division title there, there's something to be said there as well. The Jets currently sitting in 4th place in the AFC East. They're still not out of it, but their road into the playoffs seemingly a little bit harder there. And I realize that the records and all of that don't necessarily line up with that. But I do like the fact that the Jaguars have been playing really well. Trevor Lawrence has certainly kind of seemingly taken that step and continues to progress there. So I'm going to take the Jags. I'm going to also take the under, which what ends up happening when the 3 of us agree on an over and under. Yeah, this game's going to be drunk. And because
64 to 49.
Yeah, this is going to be a basketball score by the time when we look up and see this thing when it's all said and done at the end of this. But go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was just going to say, I'll take the Jags and the under, but what's your thought?
Can we appreciate that it's Kornacki season on Sunday nights now? Like, how fun is that to see Steve Kornacki out there breaking down playoff percentages?
Anyway.
It's a good time.
No comment.
Yeah. Anyway, again, guys, if you have any comments, anything like that, questions, throw them in the chat. Let's go ahead and talk about those things. Let's get those things ready to rock and roll and get you guys fully prepared here for week 16. Guys, let's go ahead and head on over here into the old Pine and the Shine for week 16 here. And we've got the shot. We'll start off with the Pines here. Who do you think is going to have a not so great week and should probably be riding the Pine for you? Alex, go ahead and start it off.
I'm going to go with a guy where weather shouldn't be a factor. It'll be relatively mild. in this game. But I'm going to go Brian Robinson against San Francisco. Niners really good against the run, have been all year. And I just don't see as cool of a story as Brian Robinson is and has been spectacular. I just don't see it this week for him.
I like it.
Fair enough. I'm going to stick with that game because I'm actually going Terry McLaurin because I don't want any part of F1 going against this Niners defense, man. They're going to make life hell for Taylor Heineke and really that's entire Washington offense.
All right, fine. I'll pick somebody not in the San Francisco and Commanders game for my pine. And I'm going to go with Christian Watson, who definitely had a little bit of a cooler last night in that Monday night game. And seemingly him and Aaron Rodgers not on the same page. Romeo Doubs coming back, seemingly now kind of the favorite target there again. So I'm going to call for Christian Watson to be a pine for me this week. Let's go ahead and hit up the shine here. Who do you think is going to have a great game? Alex, go ahead and lead us off here.
So I know we just got done trashing Danny Dimes. I'm gonna take Darius Slayton against Minnesota. Again, Minnesota's pass defense not the best. In fact, they're the second worst against the pass. So I'll take Darius Slayton to have a big game.
I'm going Najee Harris. We just saw what Ramondre Stevenson was able to do against this Raiders team on the road, and now the Raiders are flying cross country to play a crappy weather game in Pittsburgh. This type of game fits the Steelers' mentality as an organization and has since the 60s and 70s, right? Like they are built for these types of games. It will be it should be a lower scoring kind of defensive game, but with that, they're not going to just air it out. The weather will not permit it. So we should see a lot of Najee Harris, and I expect him to have a big week because right now he's like consensus ranked 22 on the week. I think he finishes well above that.
Yeah, I ended up pulling calling Omaha here in the as we were going through this. Originally had a Alvin Kamara showing up on this thing, and then really got looking at some of the weather, looking at some of that. That's definitely a prime matchup that he's got. But I'm going to go with a guy coming off of a red hot finish here this last week, and Tyler Algier has been kind of doing it under the radar here for the most part all season long. Atlanta loves to run the ball. A lot of people are still high on the Cordell Patterson type of play out there. Tyler Algier has actually been getting a ton of work. Huntley also just ended up going to the IR, ending his season. So I look for Tyler Algier to get even more work there. And I think he's going to have an overall great game. Definitely worthy of some flex consideration out there. Any other thoughts on the Pine and Shine for week 16? All right, a couple of questions in here. B-Dubs, should I sit Andrews for Waller? Would you sit Mark Andrews for Darren Waller?
It depends. Kevin, are you going up against Darren Waller in any of your games this week?
Well, I haven't gone through all my leagues yet. I actually need to.
It's always the home league. The home league is the one.
That's right.
And I'm not going up against Waller in the home league. I'd rather have Andrews. The home game, neither are a shoe-in with the limited production. Waller got in the end zone last week, right? So you see a little bit of life in that, but I think I'm leaning Andrews. I'm going to ride or die against a really bad Atlanta defense. I think that there's a better possibility for him to have 6 catches and fall in the end zone against Atlanta than there is for Darren Waller to have 4 catches and fall in the end zone against Cleveland. Or Pittsburgh.
I would agree with that. I think especially in a cold weather game, if Huntley, who's why can't I think of his name? Who's playing quarterback for Baltimore?
Huntley.
Yeah, Huntley. Thank you. If Huntley's still going, if it's not Lamar, which I don't know that there's any reason to rush Lamar back, right? Especially for this game. I still like security blanket and I go Andrews.
Well, keep in mind, Andrews' massive games last year when he finished his tight end 1 on the season came with Caleb Huntley at the QB there as
Even
well.
better.
So, Yeah, but I'm going to ride Andrews as well on that one. And yeah, I'll certainly go that way. He's certainly the more prevalent option in that offense than Darren Waller is in the Raiders offense. So, alrighty. B-Dub's also asking, you got to pick two, Christian Watson, DPJ, Burks, London, half point PPR.
Well, we just got done talking about Watson.
Right?
No,
Watson. Yeah, Watson.
Yeah.
And
DPJ.
We've
those talked
guys,
about DPJ.
My two, I'm going to go with Watson and London, even though I just called for Christian Watson to be a pine. I'm not going to trust Burks in that Houston game with Tannehill, and we may not know if Tannehill is going to play. Malik Willis looked really bad when he played against Houston earlier this season as well. I don't think that changes much, and it's not going to surprise me to see Derrick Henry run the ball 35 times in that matchup. I legitimately could see if you asked me to set the bar for an over-under on Derrick Henry rush attempts, I would tell you that the bar is set at 29.5. Like that's the rush attempt bar I would set for Derrick Henry in that Houston game. So that didn't leave much else for anybody else on that one.
Yeah, you said Watson in London. Is that who you said? Who'd you say?
Yeah, I'm going with Watson in London for my team.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too.
I'm going to go Watson and DPJ.
Okay.
I really thought Desmond Ridder was going to, play better than what he did against the Saints last week. I don't think it necessarily gets any better on the road in Baltimore. So I think I trust Deshaun Watson to get DPJ the ball more than I trust Desmond Ridder to get Drake London the ball. So Christian Watson and DPJ.
I mean, old Ridder still targeted London 11 times last week.
Mm-hmm. How'd that work out?
70 yards. That's 70 yards. There wasn't any touchdowns scored, but there weren't many touchdowns scored in a 21-18 game to begin with. So I see your point, but fair enough. So anyway, B-Dubs, you got two different opinions there, and you've got some of the different thought processes behind them, and you can ride which way you want to ride there. But guys, I do think that's going to take us down here about to the end of it. So if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, make sure you get those things in. We'll make sure that we hit up any questions that come in as we're signing off here and get you guys ready to go there. But guys, I do believe that takes us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Keep grinding. Made it this far. You got 2 weeks left. 3 if I'm sorry you played week 18, but keep grinding. Injuries and some of the matchups, the weather obviously is going to be a big thing this week. So feel free to hit us up. We'll help out however we can.
That's the two things that I had was one, make sure you guys are watching the weathercast because that is going to play a pivotal role, I think, in a lot of these games. So the weather is going to be important with how I think some of these games go. And second, also pay attention to the weather if you happen to be traveling for the holidays, because we'd like you guys to keep tuning in, get to where you're going safely, come back and see us next week once Christmas passes, and we are one step closer to 2023, which is crazy to think about. My goodness.
Absolutely. Terry's got a question coming in here. Terry, AJ Brown without Hurts or Mike Williams. Terry, I'm sorry, my hindsight-o-meter is not fully tuned in yet on that one, but we'll try and get you some foresight-o-meter.
Let's see here.
I think Mike Williams probably has the higher upside. I still think that AJ Brown has the potential to be even with Hurts missing, I think he still has the potential to be a top 12 wide receiver. I think Mike Williams probably see him more like wide receiver 13, 14 this week.
Yeah, I'm going AJ Brown by a hair. I'm going AJ Brown.
Realistically, when I'm kind of going through that, I see maybe a point and a half differential there.
I'm in on AJ Brown too. Like I said, I think Gardner Minshew is going to just air it out. He's got nothing to lose. The Eagles are fine. Like a loss this week doesn't do them any, they've already qualified for the playoffs. They're going to be fine. So I think Gardner Minshew just goes out and balls out. And I think that's going to be good things for AJ Brown.
Fair enough. Well, and what the Eagles with a win clinch the first seed, or Vikings loss and they clinch the first seed there. So,
and a Vikings loss is very real. And are they they're not playing at the same time, are they?
I'd have to look that one up.
Hold on, I'm checking.
No, they're not.
So
the Vikings play the morning game Saturday. The Cowboys have the early afternoon game.
yeah, so I mean, they could know exactly what they need to do going before the coin flip. So
absolutely. Terry also asking Njoku or Taysom Hill.
Njoku.
I'm going to be the opposite guy and say Taysom Hill here.
Of course you are.
Well, the reason being is Taysom Hill is Taysom Hill's going to get probably 7 to 9 touches in this game. David Njoku is going to get maybe 5 opportunities. I'm going to take the guy that has more volume there, and seemingly somehow manages to score a touchdown. On a pretty consistent basis, whether it's throwing it, whether it's running one. So yeah, I'll take the guy that's I'm thinking is going to see more opportunity here. Anyway, there you go, Terry. We'll see if the foresight-o-meter was working well. Well, obviously the hindsight-o-meter was working last night. I shared that story with both Alex and Kevin there off air. So anyway, alrighty guys, any other thoughts here? Oh, we got one more question coming in as soon as it pops up here. There we go. Mixon versus New England or Moss versus the Chargers. Separate league. In a separate league, Moss, Sanders, Rashad White, or Kirk. So two questions built into one question here. You go in Joe Mixon or Moss for the first one, and then and then in a different league, you go in Mixon, Sanders, Rashad White, or Kirk.
I think I'm going Mixon over Moss. So there's my first league, and then I'm going to go Sanders over Mixon, White, and Kirk in the second league. And that is Miles Sanders. Are we reading this all the same way?
That is what I was interpreting it as. Yes.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as Miles Sanders as well.
Okay, so yes, Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a concerted effort to get Miles Sanders the ball after last week. And again, how much we've been talking about how Gardner Minshew would go off. Like the Eagles are probably going to try to be balanced, right? Like they're going to not try to put the game all on Minshew's shoulders. So I think that we'll see a good dose of Miles Sanders.
I think Deion Jackson sees more work than Zach Moss does this week. So it's Mixon by a long shot for me in that one there. And I co-sign on the second one there. So yeah, that's kind of how I see
Sanders. That is, as Derek likes to say, a consensus.
There we go. Terry saying that he appreciates the foresight-o-meter. Alrighty, and then so B-Dubs asking the question: if Hurts doesn't go, have Dak, consider picking up Rodgers, Minshew, or Goff over Dak. Goff is probably the only one I'd consider playing over Dak in that situation.
I'd consider it, but I like the fact that the Cowboys are at home in this game.
Yeah.
I think that helps. It's in a dome. You're not dealing with outside elements. All the rest of these quarterbacks are.
It's not even going to be cold down here. I mean, it will be a little bit, but.
Well, yeah, 55, right, is what the high is down there Saturday. So, I mean, I would be leaning Dak personally.
Yeah, I'm playing Dak on those options there as well.
I stay with Dak, yeah.
Okay. I see another question coming in here as soon as it pops up. Anyway, we'll ask it. So, Fields versus Buffalo or Tua versus Green Bay? It's tough not to go with the rushing floor that Fields gives you, isn't it?
It is.
And we just saw Raheem Mostert carve up the Buffalo defense.
Yeah, because I picked him to suck past week.
I'm going Tua. I like the fact that game's in Miami, so I don't have to really deal with some of this other stuff. Fields against this Buffalo team, I mean, does preside an upside. So if you need the upside, Terry, like if you need to go balls out for this win, Fields is the guy. I think his upside is just completely dynamic out of that position, and you're hoping for him to have some friends in the passing game, whoever might show up that week. But if you feel really good about your roster and think you can just kind of go through and you don't need an out of this world ceiling play at quarterback to make it happen, I think Tua is a much more conscientious play at quarterback this week.
Right.
It's like responsible to play Tua. It is.
It's matchup, right? Like if your guys have the tough matchups, right? Like if you have Joe Mixon going up against New England and you have Brian Robinson going up against San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have those matchups and you're already downgraded at running back essentially, or even if George Kittle's your tight end, like Washington, one thing they do well is shut down the tight end, right? Kittle, I think, is going to have a tougher week. So if you're playing a lot of negative matchups in your skill position set, then you need Fields to make up that difference. But on the flip side, if you have plus matchups in your skill position area, then you don't need Fields to be electric. So you don't have to risk the floor of Fields going, 5 of 28 and right. Like, I mean, and I'm not saying he's not that bad of a quarterback. He has been playing better, but his offensive weaponry around him leads to that possibility in general.
Mm-hmm.
And Tua, he's not going to run, right? He might scramble here or there, but his playmakers are dynamic, and you can make up that and have a really safe floor for Tua that way. So it does depend on how the rest of your skill positions line up and which league you're talking about there.
Right. I think when I'm looking at these things, I'm probably going to see Fields uncork for 160, 165 through the air, and probably about 70 yards on the ground. And I think he probably gets a passing touchdown. Wouldn't surprise me to see him punch one in on the ground there as well. So I'm thinking it's probably about a 2 touchdown performance there with how that comes to play. Tua, I think, is probably going to get around 270 in the in passing yards there, chalk it up to less than 10 yards rushing, and probably 2 touchdowns through the air. So I think both of these guys are very, very close in overall fantasy points there. But I think you're right. I think that Tua probably gives you a little safer floor at that. I think that Justin probably gives you a little bit higher ceiling to it, just off of that rush. But Tua is the safe play. Fields, I think, is the upshot there. B-Dub saying thanks, guys. All righty. Any other thoughts on any of those other questions, or any burning last second thoughts creep in for final thoughts?
Negative.
All righty. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us. Thanks very much for tuning in. Alex, always a pleasure having you back.
It's fun to be back, guys.
Yeah, we'd like to see you a little more often. I'm not going to lie.
I'll try. I'm doing my best.
I know. All righty. You can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. We stream live on the Twitch and the YouTube as well every Tuesday and Friday night right now, 11 p.m. Eastern. And again, the best way to support this independent podcast, head over to the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button. You can find it youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF. But that's going to do it for the boys here. He's Alex. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.